Okay, Zach. So today I am excited to talk about Utah specifically and our market and what trends are and why we feel like it's an opportune time for people to jump into the buying pool. So I just wanted to start out with a story about some clients of mine. We started talking all the way in October. So it was quite a while ago. They knew that they wanted to sell their home, get a little bit larger home. They were changing cities. They were looking for some specific amenities. Of course, the first thing they said to me was, "What, Zach?" They said, "We want to know where we're going before we sell our house. Like, we're scared. We don't want to sell our house and not have some place to live." So what were they doing? They were going to a ton of open houses. They were sending me houses to evaluate. We were doing all the looking, like cart before the horse, right? But
Right.
it needs to be done. So we were doing some great investigating on that side. Meantime, we got together in October and we sat down and we really did some preparation on listing their house. They had outgrown the house. So, what we really, really needed to work on for staging was decluttering first. And then we were working on cleaning. And then, so every time they got to a certain stage, we'd revisit it. By the time we hit, let's see, I want to say it wasn't until February that they really, really were able to declutter and clean. And they had some really good ideas that they knew they were going to find a house because they had found some that they were like, "This is our house." They're like, "No, it's not our house, but it could be." So then we did some painting and we did change some carpet once we could see everything really well. Then they were ready to list. We did jump the gun. They did make an offer before we were ready, and it almost worked out, but it wasn't quite right. So then they said, "Let's just hold for a second. Let's just get our pictures done and then let's get listed and then we'll be ready." But because they did all the hard work, because they took advantage of the preparation time from October all the way until it was in end of March and they were prepared. Once we listed, we did really, really well. And we found a buyer that was willing to give them 30 days lease back without making them pay. And that gave them some breathing room to get under contract and then find a house. And then, of course, magically, because this is how the market works, buyers and houses match and the timing does work out. Not always, but a lot of times. So we were able to then make an offer on the house that they just signed on a week ago. So they were able to do that. I'm going to sell my house, but it's contingent upon the selling my house to buy this house. And there's a lot of moving parts, but this market is the time to do something crazy like that. If you have an experienced agent who knows how to help you and guide you through that, you can successfully get over the hurdles that come. Because believe you me, we have some crazy hurdles, but every hurdle we just next step, all the way through. So there are a lot of opportunities in today's market. But Zach, I want you to go like a little bit more statistical, logical now that I've told a little fun story. But tell me what you're seeing in the market today.
I love it. So as far as what I'm seeing is this spring market ended up being a much slower than I'd say what expectation was. When we look at the annualized sales for this year, if we did it for the spring, was right around 4 million units annualized, which the last time we saw it that low for a spring market was back in 2009. So it's been a long time since. And so all that means is homes are typically sitting on the market a little bit longer, right? They aren't getting listed and getting multiple offers day one or even in the first week. Sometimes it's taking 2, 3, 4 weeks of marketing that home to find that perfect buyer. Another thing too is like right here on the data, it's saying that the average home is taking about 38 days on average to go under contract. And so it's funny because I had a seller and it was a buyer recently, and they similar thing. First week came by and they're like, "Why don't we have an offer on the house?" And it's like, well, give it time. There's no reason for us to panic after week one. Let's just sit back, do another open house, and watch more buyers come through the home and get that right one. Another thing that's really interesting is only 31.2 of homes are selling for above list price. And I think that there's probably a number of different reasons for that, but I'm seeing definitely the ones that are going above are really turnkey and staged correctly by like an amazing. They're just dolled up and looking just perfect on the outside and the inside.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of that has to do with people are willing to pay a little bit more if the seller's willing to let them make it contingent upon the sale of their home. Because a lot of people are using that trick right now because they're like, okay, since there's not 26 offers on this house, I think they'll take my offer contingent upon the sale of my house. because I'm the only offer. And so I'll give them a little bit better pricing so that that'll entice them to work with me. So I think that's another thing that's happening a lot in today's market.
I like it. Yeah, no, definitely. Just having that flexibility, right, of knowing where they're going once the home sells. So
Yeah.
definitely worth paying a little bit for that convenience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just from some more statistical data as we look at this, like there's still a shortage of housing, and there's a bunch of different numbers floating around online and stuff like that. I believe the one that's most accurate is probably around 3.8 million that we're short on homes. Now, granted, that's kind of been a unique thing because interest rates jumped so high, so we're not really feeling that shortage as much now than when rates were back at 2 or 3%, right? We were
Yeah.
all feeling that shortage back in 2020 and 2021. And so that's been mitigated by higher interest rates. But I guarantee you, once interest rates start to trend down, that'll be probably one of the biggest hurdles for most buyers will be, ah, man, I just can't find anything in my, the area I want to be in with the number of bedrooms, with this much, land, different things like that. Right now, it's easy to get that. It's easy to get the bedroom count. It's easy to get, those things. And I think that'll start to disappear in 2026. And so that's one thing that, will be interesting as that market changes. This past year in 2024, we saw home builders deliver 1.6 million new homes for the whole United States, which is the best that they've done in 20 years. So builders are doing their job. As I look at this, I'm like, man, thank goodness they're delivering product that's really good for Utah specifically. I mean, I look at the mix that they're creating and we're seeing, condos, townhomes, single family, like that isn't the same in other states. Other states I've heard where it's like, hey, look, they're not buying, townhouses as much. They're only doing single family here. And so I think we're kind of lucky in that way with what the products that builders are coming out with. And then what we're also seeing is there was kind of a shift as far as household formations, where about 1.63 million didn't form because of costs being too high. They just elected to stay with family or go rent or do different things like that. And so we've got a really good pent up demand that's likely going to, find itself buying probably in 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, well, and something that I love, so I've worked a lot with new construction in the last 20 years. And what I've noticed here in Utah, especially, is that we've got some really good powerhouse companies. Some of the smaller guys, unfortunately, did go out of business with change in market and stuff. But as of right now, I actually know that they do get together. They have big meetings to try to help Utah's market and build to the demand. They're working with zoning and making sure that they have the right amount and the right size of homes available where there is, because the Wasatch Front here in Utah is a smaller area to work with. So there's not a lot of expansion. So we are having to do some up expansion, which is not typical in certain cities, especially like in Bountiful, for example. In Bountiful, Utah, they just don't, different areas in Salt Lake, it is more common, like in the capital, building up is more common. But I love that, like Edge, Symphony Homes, Ivory Homes, like these are some of the bigger companies that I've worked with, and they get together and they're trying to figure out, like, how do we support our economy? How do we make this so that it's a win-win? And I feel like they've done a really good job. It's a little bit harder to find like a build from lot, because what a lot of the builders have done is they're saying, to protect us, to help the buyers too, so that we can maintain the price that we've promised and the time frame that we've promised. They have hired really great interior designers to completely style the home. They're choosing really, really good upgrades like a fireplace or 9-foot ceilings. They're doing bump outs. They're doing things that add value, but they also know these are the most popular upgrades, and they're using the most popular color palettes so that buyers are really, really happy with the choices that they've done. And actually, like, I'm not opposed, because a lot of times when buyers design it on their own, especially if they don't have a really good agent who can help them understand, like, this is where you want to spend your money. It's crazy. Like, I was just in the design center with a client, and they were told that this upgrade that they wanted was going to be like almost $10,000. I was like, wait, but if we do this level and if we do that, so I helped them get the upgrade they wanted, exactly what they wanted, for 3,000 instead of almost 10. So
Oh.
anyway, a whole nother tangent. But what I'm trying to say is that I think new construction Utah is doing a good job, and that even though we're still behind, people are not feeling like we're behind the market because they're feeling like they have choices because so many people are fenced. So many, I mean, we have like 25% of the people just waiting for rates to come down. So, yeah.
And then just some of the trends that we're going to be seeing over the next 6 to 9 months are these. We got the Fed policy. We're still planning on 2 rate cuts this year. We're kind of doubtful we're going to get one in July, but they could surprise us. We're kind of expecting the first one to happen in September and then another one in fourth quarter. And so those will be both 25 basis point cuts. Inflation trend's been doing fantastic. There's some worries about tariffs as far as those maybe bumping up inflation reports. But I went and looked at it today and we peaked at like 9% on CPI, which is an inflation report. And now that inflation is at like 2.7%. So going from 9 to 2.7 is a big change. And so we
Yeah.
should start to have that as a tailwind for us, which will be fantastic. Labor market's looking pretty good overall. The BLS jobs report came out this last month and it showed that we added like 139,000 jobs. And so I'd say overall as a labor market, it's about as good as it gets, in terms of, being able to get a job easily. So
Well, and
yeah,
especially here in Utah, like having the mini Silicon Slopes and that Lehigh area, Lehigh, Harriman, Draper, all those areas, there's so much growth happening there and the jobs are really strong. So that's something that Utah has, I think that's different than other areas. But I also know that overall, anyone who's asking, I am telling, now is a great time to jump into the market. You're going to have more choices. You're going to have less competition. You're going to have some flexibility to make some moves that make you feel a little bit more secure. I mean, buying is super, super emotional. And in this market, I have found that there are a lot of people just able to slow down and take their time. My buyers have a chance to look at the HOA documentation, ask the questions that they want. They're even going so far as to like talking to some of the neighborhoods, like the members of the neighborhood, or everything is not so fast paced that they don't feel high pressure into making the changes that they are. So I feel like we're doing a lot of consultation, which I love. I think both of you and I would agree that 6, 9 months before you're actually ready to make a change is the perfect time to start planning. Because, especially like if you're going to list and buy, then there's a lot that I can give you marching orders. And it takes so much longer than what people think because they're like, it won't be that bad until we get into it and they start moving things and minimizing and nobody wants to do the hard, heavy lifting. They don't want to go get a storage unit. They don't want to move furniture out, but it feels so good once they do. The energy flows, it invites people. We can get all the right sight lines. It is that turnkey, like what you were saying, which helps us get an offer, not just a higher offer, but a faster offer. And if we're going to make it contingent, we really want that. So, waiting for rates to go down, a lot of people are doing that. That is where people feel secure. There's like 25% of the market saying, I'm not going to do anything until those rates go down because that's where they feel like they can get some sense of security. But I am saying, like, jump on it, be proactive, be ready and get ahead of it because my clients who have are going to be sitting pretty on their equity. They're going to be able to refinance when the rates do go down, and then they've won kind of on multiple fronts. So I think that we have great opportunities, and it is the perfect time here in Utah to jump into the market. Any last comments or words of wisdom?
yeah, just to go along with you, Janet. I mean, I'd say it's definitely there. The window's closing is what I'm seeing, right? I
Yeah.
think by the time we get into, you know, start of 2026, we're going to see shifting happening. And so I think if anybody's really wanting to get after it, they're best to get in contact with you or myself now, start to make that game plan and probably execute in the next 3 to 6 months. So,
Yeah. Well, thanks again for your time. I always love talking strategy with you and talking, next steps. So let's help some people get some homes. Thank you
and I
so
love it.
much.
Take care, Janet.
Thanks. You too.